Hi there, and welcome to another episode of 411 Pop Culture. This is your host, Justin Steele. With me today is my friend Jon Gallagher, and we're going to be talking about Season 8, Episode 2 of Game of Thrones. Thanks for joining me, Jon. How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good.
All right, what did you think about the episode tonight?
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I thought it was really good. I thought it was like a joyful highlights of like all these moments we've been waiting for with reunions and the sort of joy they came from seeing this interaction, and reading the past week or watching reviews and stuff like that, I've noticed various people comment on how the first episode was not as exciting or, not full of jam-packed action punches, and I gotta say, yes, of course it wasn't. What makes those sort of action moments so great is when you are full of character development and you care about these characters. I mean, if everything is just a battle, just a game, then there's nothing at stake. You're not watching somebody and then you get that thrill of, even if it's just on a subconscious level and you realize, you know what this person's going through, this soldier, and so when they either live or die or have a moment, it makes a little bit more of an impact. And what's nice about what they're doing is they're setting up episode 1 and 2 for obviously episode 3. And I think the first episode hit the right beat, and I feel like this episode hit all the right beats of what I was hoping for. We kind of saw the sort of right away they jumped into it with Jaime, and then we had sort of this amalgamation of different characters sort of joined together, having interactions that haven't seen each other in seasons. And even though we've gotten these little glimpses of reunions to this episode, with the exception of Cersei, who was sorely missed, for me, I missed her, but overall to have it all right in this little small Winterfell sort of scene, you get to see all these interactions, and that's the joy of watching a show like this. So today we're going to talk about Season 8, Episode 2, and what we liked about it, if there's anything we didn't like about it, and what we think about what's coming up in the future. So what I did like was how they jumped right into the Jaime stuff. I wasn't sure. I've seen in theories throughout the week from stuff on YouTube and news and outlets, that they thought maybe Jaime the whole episode was going to be imprisoned and it was going to be this back and forth, and I'm so glad that they didn't do that. I'm glad that it very much jumped right into it. So what did you think? What did you think about all the stuff that was going on in terms of the Jaime opening scene?
I enjoyed it. I like the interaction between Dany and Jaime because it's very much set from, in the book's perspective, that's how she grew up hearing these stories, is that Jaime Lannister killed her father, murdered him, and it's because of the Lannister family that she was that she led the life that she lived. That she was abused by her brother and taken advantage of and sold off in marriage. And
yeah. Because it's frustrating for viewers. Yeah. We see those other points. She only has this one view of it.
I enjoyed Sansa calling him out and then rightly defending him once Brienne kind of came to his defense about the scene with the rape, or the potential rape, and how he lost a hand as a result of it.
I was worried. I had mixed emotions because, yes, she did say more than enough, I thought, for her to his defense. But I thought she could have also said, and by the way, the reason why he killed your father, Dany, is because of this, because he did confess to her in that hot tub sauna thing. And I, in hindsight, I'm glad she didn't, because I probably wouldn't, even if it is logical information, it probably wouldn't have come out well. And then what about, the moment with Dany and Tyrion when he tried to defend Jaime?
Dany lately has been very mistrustful of Tyrion, and I think rightly so.
I do too.
I think that the bond of family and the bond of blood is very strong in this world. People fight for their family even though they know that it is the wrong thing to do. Even Jaime said it, that he would do all those heinous acts over again if it was for his family.
Which makes him trustful, though. You can trust him because he's being honest. He's being I'm bearing it all to you. I'm here to help you, but I'm not going to lie so that you save me in this moment. You either trust me or don't, and I'm telling you to trust me, and this is why you can trust me, because I'm being honest.
Jaime as a character has always done heinous things, but he's always been honest. He's never been much of a liar. He's always been very upfront with his intentions.
Absolutely.
And his motivations for those things.
I agree.
So yeah, he's always been honest.
And then I was anticipating that Bran was going to jump in at some point and be like, well, I've seen it all, and I know that he's good, and obviously that would be a really easy cheat to do that every time with Bran. I was really glad that they got right to it, that it resolved the way it did. And I felt for Tyrion after in the next scene when he's kind of like, you're probably going to be the hand next and you're going to be wearing this pin. But you can't really blame Dany, even though we know Tyrion, we love Tyrion. You can't blame Dany for like being at that point. But I thought it was great that Jorah kind of jumped in and also steered Dany to talking to Sansa, which I was glad to see them have a moment that was friendly, that was happy. It ended on a sort of a dark note, which is good because I'm not ready for them to just be like, okay, we're fine. But I did like that there's like that hope. There's like a glimpse of that. What did you think with the Dany Sansa scene?
That's the scene I've kind of been wanting to see since these two came together. Because Sansa as a character has really progressed over the seasons, and she's really grown.
Well, she's very much in that Peter Baelish sense, so it's like she has that shield on, so it's good to see her open a little bit, and you see some of the like Sansa there that was earlier on.
She has become quite the manipulator. Like she knows how to play the pieces the way she wants them.
Well, and I liked what Dany said about, because Sansa said that too, that or men can be manipulated very easily, and then Dany's kind of like, sure, but who manipulated who? Because I'm here because of Jon, and I love Jon, and it's all like, it's a nice segue to like kind of open up even more to Sansa. It did end on that dark note of what are you going to do with the North, because we don't know. I think Dany will be open to certain kinds of change, but she needs to have certain respect first, almost kind of like what we saw last episode with Theon and Yara, in terms of, I need you to show me this respect, now what do you want? And I think it's kind of going to be paralleled with that. Once Dany gets what she needs, she is going to obviously give them, for the most part, maybe not everything, but I think she'll compromise.
I don't know. Dany so far hasn't been much at compromising.
Maybe not at compromising, but I think when she sees what's for the best of her people and maintaining peace, and I think that forming these bonds with the Starks...
I mean, it's a start. I mean, but she just last season kind of burnt two Lords of Westeros
because they didn't show her the respect.
Yes.
So I'm saying if she gets her respect, then I think she'll give respect back. And yeah, if with that situation, yes, I 100% agree. If somebody's like, hey, we're doing it my way and that's the end, she's like, you're on fire. But anybody that's come to her, Tyrion, anybody over there is the Lord, she was willing to, even in the back in the days of freeing the slaves, she was willing to listen to the masters, but as soon as they were like, it's going to be my way, no, it's not. But I do think Dany, otherwise then it's Cersei. Why wouldn't you just have Cersei then be the queen? Because Cersei's the type that, I'll say that I'm going to compromise, I'll do whatever, and no matter what you say, I'm still doing whatever I want. I think Dany, the whole point of it is that it's for the realm, the good of the realm, and I think that there's going to be some sort of change, which we saw glimpses of changes with the Brienne stuff, with the knighthood, and slowly these traditions are changing. But we did kind of discuss how with Brienne, we saw a little too much of her. We mentioned last week that we didn't see her enough, and we saw too much of her this week. And I only mean in terms of, I don't want her to die, and I feel like that means she's going to die, because that's kind of what happens on shows like this. As soon as you start getting these more dramatic, heartfelt, different layers to the character, we set you up, and so it's that much harder when you fall. And I do think that of all the like secondary characters of the series, from the Hound to Samwell Tarly to everybody, I think Brienne is my favorite secondary character, and I would be really heartbroken if that were to occur. But she would die with honor, and that's pretty much all she's ever wanted, so, it's tricky. I did find... Well, you go on. Do you have a response to that?
My thought is, yes, they set her up a lot of screen time, and I do worry for her as a character, but I think one of two things are going to happen in the next episode. Either Brienne is going to die saving Jaime, or Jaime will die saving Brienne.
Yeah, I could see either of those things happening. I'm leaning towards Brienne dying for Jaime, because unless, Brienne's going to take a revenge, he's still got, I feel like there's still, like, his end with Cersei. I would be surprised if they still didn't do some sort of follow-up with all of that. I don't think that that's over. But, one could argue that he's still going to kill her, but through Brienne and her coming in to take care of that. But I guess you don't know. What else? I did think there was a lot of comedic moments with what's the I'll never remember his name, and I apologize to everybody because he is one of my favorite characters.
Tormund.
Tormund, yeah, he had a lot of comic relief in terms of leering and the words he was saying to Brienne, which ultimately did lead to her getting what she wanted. Is because of him continuing going on and on. And I really loved that moment. I think that was the one moment. I had a few moments that kind of tugged at the heartstrings, but I think in the episode I did get teary-eyed when Brienne was being knighted and all of that was going on.
Yeah, a lot of this episode was about how would these characters want to spend the last night of their lives.
Yeah.
Like, who would you want to spend your last night alive with?
Like Arya said, not with the Hound and what's his name, these two old
Old
shits. And yeah, the rest of them did. Oh, and I guess we should probably cover Arya. I'm happy for you, Arya. I was not ready to see it. I
was
covered my eyes.
awkward.
Fine with the character development of Arya, but literally seeing, and I know Maisie Williams is like in her 20s now, early 20s. I fell apart. I was like, no, 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 I
It's like
can't. I
watching your
felt
sister,
like your little sister. Like I couldn't. I'm happy for her, and I wondered if they were going to continue the Gendry sort of development. And I was glad in the first scene it wasn't so overt, the flirting, but it doesn't matter now because then it completely went all the way. And I'm happy for them, and I think it's a very natural thing in that kind of situation to just have that moment. But no, I certainly wasn't ready. I'm glad they didn't get any more graphic. And I'm most certainly not a prude, but to me, she will be, we have this image of like this 10-year-old girl on this show. And I had to shield my eyes. They didn't show too much, but it was enough what they showed. And
Yeah.
which, I mean, nothing to Maisie Williams. I'm sure she wants to be thought of as an adult now. She's in her 20s and live your life. I was in my 20s once too. But as a 30-something-year-old guy, two 30-something-year-old guys watching the show, I was not ready to see that. Keep your clothes on for now. But no, I think that scene was interesting. And I really liked when I was surprised, Sansa, how much she reacted to Theon.
Oh yeah, I think their whole journey with Ramsay has really brought them together.
Oh, absolutely.
And the fact that she learned that Theon didn't kill her brothers, that he lied.
Yeah, yeah. And saved her, and they had that, I mean, it was a big leap of faith, metaphorically and literally, where they jumped off the castle, or the tower. But it was, for both of them a turning point, a leap of faith that they had to trust each other, and at a point where they didn't want to trust anybody, and which led her to her trusting Brienne. Again, no choice, but she did, these were all turning points in their lives. And it was nice to see they were still kind of hanging out during the sort of the montage with, what's his name singing?
Pod.
Pod. When Pod was singing, I thought, he has a nice voice, and I thought it was the right emotional timbre, not overly done. And she was hanging out with Theon during that, so I thought that was good. What else happened in the episode? There's so much. There's just so much.
A lot of character-driven story points just to
set up this next
episode
battle
where everybody's going to die.
Right, pretty much. Like Tyrion said, we might live. Oh, I really had a moment too with, man, I had their names when I was thinking this. I'm sorry, I am terrible about this. Davos, is that his name?
Davos,
okay,
yeah.
When he was talking to that little girl and Gilly came in, and I'm sure he's reminded of,
oh Lord, it was Stannis' daughter.
Stannis' daughter. He was reminded of her, and there was a lot of moments in that too where it's just subtle little hints, but I really enjoyed that. I thought, like I said, it's these moments, it's what makes the show brilliant. It's going to be over in a few episodes, and people want, action, happen. Why is it not happening? It's about to happen. It's going to be huge, and it's going to be even more of an impact because of these moments, these little sprinklings of joy and sadness and reunion. And I thought the second was really good. I thought it was a really good episode. And there are still a couple things, though, I want to cover. But before I forget, one thing I was thinking about was when what is his name? Jorah was talking to Dany and saying, hey, you need to go do two things or whatever. I will say, though, I didn't think he was going to direct her to Sansa. I thought what he was going to say was, hey, you need to go talk to Samwell Tarly and be like, fix this. Because I am concerned about still how he might be reacting. He didn't really seem too upset. He seemed back to kind of being Sam. But I do think that she has to say something like, hey, I did what I had to do. But you seem like a pretty okay guy, and I'm sorry for you, and I don't think that would be so terrible. But anyway, that's what I thought in that moment. But now, I do want to talk about Dany and Jon, and finally that moment, because I really had made peace with it, that I'm like, okay, he's not gonna say it to her, and then he really said it, and just said it very simply, to the point. I do wish that he had said something like, blah blah blah, this is it, blah blah blah, just what he said, but then kind of ended with when she was like, that would make you the, the potential heir. I wish he had said something to her like, well, yeah, but I still don't want to be king. I want to be with you, and that's what I've always wanted. And I wish something like that had occurred. But what did you think about that whole scene?
I enjoyed it. For the most part, for most of the episode, it seemed like Jon was intentionally avoiding her.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Absolutely.
being very short, not really wanting to have a conversation with her.
And Samuel totally called him out on that.
Yes. And I think that when Dany went down into the crypts and joined Jon in front of the statue of Lyanna, and, Dany has her own version of this history.
Which I'm glad it was the version that's sort of like what everybody else knows, so that the way he delivered the information was very like, okay, no, you're right. Your brother was actually this decent guy, and I know this because he's my father.
Yes. It was very much like the notion that you had about your brother is true.
Mm-hmm.
He is a good guy.
You get to believe in him again.
Yes, like he wasn't this terrible rapist, kidnapper. He loved her, she loved him, they had a child, it was me.
Right.
And I think that the only thing I wish is that we got her reaction after that a little bit more.
Sure. And I knew that if we even got that much, they weren't going to give us any more than that. And of course, it's set up for the whole battle. Again, it's these moments that are going to make the battle all the more interesting, these little shadings and developments that there's going to come a moment where she's going to have to either save him or not, or vice versa, and it's going to be like, this information now, what are you going to do? And then make your peace with it. But no, I thought it was done really well, the scene. Like, just how it was, the information revealed. For so many seasons, the unknowing of Jon's heritage, people had their theories, then it being confirmed, then finally Jon finding out, I thought was done really well, and I also think the way that Dany is finding out was done really well. We'll see how everybody reacts, the other characters, and these two themselves, but I thought that the way the show did it was very well done. Again, I'm sure everybody, of course we want more. Of course we want to know right now what's going on and what's happening, and we want the end already. But that's the enjoyment of it, because this is going to be over in 4 weeks, and it's going to be done. So let's have it. Let's have it as delivered in the best possible way, and I think that's what they're doing.
I agree.
Was there anything else in this episode?
Just their general plan about how they're going to deal with the Night King using Bran as bait.
What do you think about it?
I think it is a terrible idea.
Oh, really? I'm ambivalent. I'm not Tyrion. I do not have these war strategies in my mind, so I kind of was like, sounds good to me. I didn't realize you felt that way.
Well, for one, up until this point, the Night King seems like an intelligent
always seeming
commander.
One step ahead. I mean, and he's always one step ahead.
There is no reason why he has to put himself out in the open. For one, he has a dragon. And two, he has this huge undead army that literally will probably decimate Winterfell. I have a sneaking suspicion that Winterfell's probably going to fall.
Sure. Well, what would you have done? What do you not like about it then? Like, what would you do differently?
I don't know what I would do differently in this situation, but using someone as bait for somebody who has all of the cards.
I guess if it was somebody else coming up with it, my only thoughts about it, and again, I'm ambivalent, I don't know whether I think it's a good or bad idea, but I will say for not having, if I was going to trust anybody to come up with this idea, and I feel like it was Bran that came up with this idea, I would kind of listen to Bran, and that's my only opinion about it, was this was kind of Bran's idea, and I'm sure it's going to come out looking like a terrible idea in the end, but Bran is thinking long term. Like, okay, we didn't really touch on this, but when Bran and Jaime talked at the beginning of the episode, it very much was, well, I would still be Bran Stark, and instead I'm this person, and yes, your actions were terrible, but it doesn't matter because they led to this, and this is good. Because of the way things happened, with Sansa, Jaime wouldn't have been on the path he was on if it hadn't been for what he did to Bran, which ultimately saved Brienne and saved Sansa, and it, like they said, I mean, it all kind of plays out the way it's supposed to play. So, and I think that's life in general, which is one of the universal themes from the show, is that sometimes even when bad things happen, they're for a reason. And I think Bran has this knowledge, and even if it, because he is the one that sort of did it, and I liked that Theon kind of came in and was, hey, you know, I did some bad things, and so I'm going to do this for you. I liked that. I do think, though, with Bran coming up with this idea, there's probably a reason.
Mm.
But yeah, anybody else who had said it, yeah, I guess I would think it was a terrible idea.
And let's like point out the fact that Bran seems to be manipulating a lot of people
Sure.
into certain points.
Oh, sure.
And it's funny that a lot of the Stark kids who were so disadvantaged in the beginning of the series with the events that happened to them are some of the main players on the board pushing people towards their outcomes.
For sure.
And
it's the opposite of everyone we thought. All the strongest, so-called strongest people, Robb, Ned, and Catelyn, are all the ones that are long, long gone. And it's sort of like the pups, the outcast and the weak ones. They're the ones that are like the main group, and they are the strongest. And I don't know. I think it's good and interesting. I think that about wraps it up. Thanks for joining me, John. Tell us what you think. Did you like this episode? Do you agree with me, or do you agree with John? Me, that Dany, in terms of the North, is going to be a little bit more willing to compromise because that's the kind of queen she is? Or do you think she's going to be a little bit more ruthless like John believes? And did you miss Cersei this episode? Are you the type of person that wish we had gotten a little bit more action this episode? Or are you glad that we're having more of an emotional setup for the following third episode, the Battle for Winterfell? Well, I'm your host, Justin Steele. This is Jon Gallagher, and this is 411 Pop Culture, where real people talk about really everything. Thanks for watching. Keep your clothes on for now.